promise you something really scary.
Attention. Do I have everybody's attention now?
What's up, everybody? It's Overtime with Mike and JD, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm joined as always by JD Oliva. How you doing, JD?
Good, man. It's my first or second favorite Sting song. It changes by the day. The first is the other one would actually be Seek and Destroy, and I was fortunate enough to get to see Metallica this past weekend in Chicago. That was
yeah, man. How did you manage that?
My wife bought me tickets for Father's Day.
And they were at Soldier Field?
They were at Soldier Field. I haven't been to Soldier Field in a long time because the Bears have sucked for a long time. So I haven't been there in a while. It was a disaster because we live in the country now. It was a disaster getting in. It's about an hour and a half typically. You know, sometimes 2 hours with traffic. It was 5 hours to get in. 5 hours it took me to get from my house to my seats. The nosebleeds, by the way, in Soldier Field. So, and then 3.5 hours by the time the concert ended to get to my bed. So I mean, it was an ordeal, but man, they still put on a hell of a show.
Yeah, dude, I haven't seen them live since 2002.
For me, it was 2000 before this. So yeah, it had been a while.
Yeah, it's funny. So they were last year when I was in Missouri. I was there for a funeral, and I found out that like the night before the funeral, they were in St. Louis, which is like a 3-hour drive. And me and my buddy, we're like both in our 40s. He's a few years older than me, and we're like old, and I'm exhausted. And he's like, dude, Metallica's in St. Louis tonight, and they got like cheap nosebleeds because they're at the Dome, the Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And I was like, really? He goes, I'll drive. I was like, huh. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, I'm exhausted just thinking about that. It's like, there's no way I'm driving. I'm going to get in a car, go 3 hours, watch what would likely be a 3-hour concert because I'm going to get there before Metallica, watch the opening act. I think the opening act was, I think it might've been Pantera.
That's what it was here. It was Mammoth WVH, which is Wolfgang Van Halen's band, and Pantera. And I missed them both because what you talked about fearing, I actually did.
Yeah.
And I had zero qualm about it. Like, I don't care that it took me forever to get down there. I got to see them. I mean, who knows how much longer they're going to tour for. And, you know, I don't know. I feel like I had to go. And I took my childhood best friend, the guy who got me into the band. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a great way to celebrate 40 years of friendship. So it was pretty cool.
That is really cool. And kudos to Mrs. Oliva for hooking that up.
Yeah, Michelle, good people.
Yep. But man, you know what? So tonight, if you guys can guess by the title, we're going to talk about Bret versus Owen in 1994. And JD has a unique perspective on this feud since he actually got to, be a part of it, at least in a small way, in 1994, a long time ago. But before we get to that, we did have a little bit of news. And I know some of you guys come here for news stuff. So let's go ahead and just get right into some of the more modern topical stuff. One, Tony Khan was on Twitter, as he tends to be, probably the most perennial online executive in wrestling history. But Tony says, "Thank you all who watch AEW as we approach indelible times." Nobody talks like that, Tony. Sorry. No. In our history with AEW All In London, Wembley Stadium, August 25th, plus the most important announcements in AEW history ahead. Wednesday night Dynamite will be great this week. Then of course he gets in the plug there. But I mean, he's basically telling you that the TV announcement is coming, right?
I would assume so. I mean, the way I read it at first sounded like he was going to make the announcement on the show. I don't think that's going to happen now. No. I think they're probably going to do it at Wembley, right?
Yeah, you would think, but the problem is I think that a TV deal doesn't really affect anybody that's in the stands.
No, let me rephrase that. I mean, it'll probably be the weekend of Wembley. Yeah. Like I imagine the news will break. We'll probably hear it in the presser, pre or post. Like not like I don't think he's going to go into the ring like Vince McMahon at Mania 3 and go, "We have a TV deal." I don't think anybody cares about that.
No, well, certainly the people in London won't care
No.
because they're like, it's like unless it's going to be out on a nice time on ITV, like in prime time for them. But I think it kind of the time slot bounces around a little bit, and I think they're on like ITV4 or something like that.
UK is weird how they do TV there. It's very different than how it is here. So we should get like Daz on here to talk about UK TV sometime. That'd be kind of cool. I know he's listening, so if you ever want to listen to Daz, open invite.
Yeah, no, if we're gonna have Daz on here, I don't want to talk wrestling one bit.
Yeah, I want to talk movies and stuff like that, or X-Men. I would much rather do that with him.
Yeah. We need to talk about movies with him because he is a wealth of information. He kind of got on to me the other day.
Oh, I missed it. What did he get on you about?
Because I am not an M. Night Shyamalan guy.
Me neither.
Yeah, I liked Unbreakable. Thought that was great. Sixth Sense. Thought that was great. I liked Signs. I thought that was great. I was a big fan. I know I was a big fan. I really did like it. He lost me at The Village, and he never got me back. And then everything after that was like, I just can't do it.
Village is trash. I'll give you that. He has me for 82% of Signs. The ending completely loses me. I hate the ending so much.
It's so melodramatic.
So melodramatic. The alien looks kind of shitty, which is sad because it looked great earlier in the movie. And then it's like, if you think about the plot, they're allergic to water. They landed on a planet that was 86% water. Like, bad idea. Like, it just kind of falls apart, swing away. I don't know. But The Village is complete. I remember seeing The Happening in the theater and watching Mark Wahlberg be like, the trees are killing us. Was killing me at the time. So yeah, I gave up on M. Night Shyamalan after The Happening, and I don't think I've seen anything of his since.
Yeah, I think I saw The Village, and then I think I saw Lady in the Water.
I skipped,
but I watched it because I thought the previews looked cool, and I just didn't pay attention to who did it. And then like I watched, and I was like, "This is crap." And then I find out, oh, it's M. Night Shyamalan. I was like, "Well, okay, that makes sense, right? It's the same guy who did these other movies that I don't like."
Well, it's sad because like the Sixth Sense is such a great ending, and I think that he fell in love with the twist or felt the expectation that every movie of his had to have these like dramatic twists, and it's hard to outdo yourself with those things time after time after time. So he got away from that, but it's still kind of like I never saw Devil. I never saw what's the new one? Trapped? Is that the new one he has out?
It's got Josh Hartnett in it.
Yeah, I'm good.
I can't, but the previews look really good, but then I saw that it's Shyamalan. I was like, I just can't do it.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You ain't getting me 3 times, M. Night.
yeah. It's not happening. Our buddy Ibu of Wrestle Purists.
Our buddy. We like Ibu.
Yeah, we really like him. Was on the Wrestle Purists Worldwide podcast earlier today. I have not had a chance to listen, but from what I can gather, he broke some scoops.
Ooh.
That All Out, AEW All Out, the main match there is.
I have tickets to that.
Oh, Swerve versus Hangman. That's where they're gonna blow that off. That's what it looks like.
Sweet.
Yeah. Now, whether or not it's for the title, beyond me. I don't know. Hangman seems like he's losing a lot. I don't know. I don't know if he's quite the title challenger, but we'll find out if Danielson retires or not.
I don't know. Does Danielson want to win the title? Some weeks I don't even think I know anymore.
Yeah. If he does, if he does beat Swerve and it's clean, it's like Swerve's kind of a jabroni now because he lost to this guy that's like almost dying and needs neck surgery. Doesn't want anything to do with the business.
Mike, Swerve's already a jabroni. He was letting Ishii this human potato Ishii sell for him. I can't believe
so stupid.
I wasted time arguing with some of these idiots today. I'm like, I can't believe that people are like saying this Ishii guy is a jobber. Like the fact that I actually took time to compare Tomohiro Ishii to George South means I should run my own face through a meat grinder right now. Like I know better than that.
Yeah, honestly, you kind of deserve the aggravation.
I do.
For engaging.
No, I do. 100. I agree. I Daved myself. Like I lived life as Dave for a day.
Yeah. No, I saw people arguing about that. I was like, these people are dummies. I'm not getting involved in this.
You're right.
And plus, like I didn't watch Collision, so I'm not going to get into an argument about the quality of Collision because I have not seen Collision in a while. Although I do like the venue, it just seems unimportant to me, and so I just haven't really. It's like, man, I gotta prioritize my time. There's so many other things that I'm interested in, and this was like a big football weekend for me. So I kind of focused my personal dad time when I wasn't like working out or whatever, doing errands, like if I had some TV time, I just focused it in on football.
I'm trying to make sure I'm spending as much time with my family as possible right now
Yes.
because
Yeah.
school's starting, and I know that things lean up, and uh, I've been pretty public about my mental health journey this year, and it's been like, I want to make sure that I stay on top of things and don't let what's really important slide now that school starts again, because I get pretty busy,
Yeah.
between work and grad school and all the bullshit. I don't want to, if that means I have to miss Collision, okay, I'm a bad wrestling fan. I'd rather be a bad wrestling fan than a bad husband or a bad dad.
Oh, same here. So I think like I have the week off this week because my daughter starting kindergarten. So today was her first day.
Congrats.
So
Big day for you. Big day for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm walking her to and from kindergarten every single day. And then afterwards, today she had a great day. Dude, it was weird. We have to walk her right up to her classroom door. So it's not like you just walk them up to the front door of the school and then like they just go. You have to walk them straight to the door, right?
Really?
It's just the way that it's set up here because we're in Hawaii. Everything's more outdoor, right?
Oh,
so
okay,
the buildings are separated. So
yeah.
So we had to go to the kindergarten wing, and so anyway, we get there, and our daughter's nervous. First day of kindergarten, she sees her teacher, doesn't say bye, doesn't give us a hug, just runs right in. I was like, well, what the hell? She was excited.
Andy pulled the same move on us when he was in kindergarten. He because again, we have the opposite. We could walk him to the front door, but we couldn't go in. And it got to the point because kindergarten, that's before I started teaching, I used to drive him every day. And first day of kindergarten, we got him to the door and he looked and said, bye. And he just bolted. And I was like, oh, cool. Emotional moments with your kids. And it don't get better.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife started crying afterwards. I was like, she still loves you, I promise.
Same. And Michelle did the same thing with Andy. She got emotional about that. And like, I said, he'll be fine. It's good. And we had done preschool. Did you preschool with your daughter beforehand?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, same. We did a couple years. So we did 2-year-old preschool and 3-year-old preschool, and then we didn't do the 4-year-old preschool because that was 2020. That was during the COVID. So that was my intro to teaching. Was trying to homeschool in preschool a 4-year-old. That went great. Let me tell you.
Yeah. So she was in preschool for 2 years. So but here they have a YMCA on base. And so they have a preschool program through the YMCA. So we did that. And then there was a little bit like when my wife was taking in-person classes at the University of Hawaii, they have a preschool there on campus. And so my daughter would do that a couple days a week too. So she is pretty well used to being in school and kind of not being completely connected to us. Preschool is only 3 or 4 hours though. Like it's not much, but it was really just enough for my wife to get classes done during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, no, it's big day here. So, and then over the weekend, I did family stuff each day. And then like, I was like, okay, here's workout time. Like I worked out on Sunday, we did church and then got back. We did some more family stuff. We went to Costco, hang out. And then I was like, okay, family, I need like 90 minutes to watch this football game. So just give me 90 minutes. And then once the starters are out, I don't care anymore. So I'm like watching, and then I have like some of the post-game show on YouTube and stuff. So I have to like prioritize my time, make sure I get everything, but I still need like some nerd time and hobby time for myself because I think dad time is pretty important.
I think dad time is super important. I think that I'm gonna have to start paying attention to football again because Caleb Williams had a really good, first preseason game.
He did. I was pretty impressed with the guy. Although he just seems like one of those guys that calls his football uniform an outfit. He's just an odd bird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he kind of is.
His jersey's probably called the blouse or something. Like they said that. Like I'm sure he's gonna I don't know. He's just like a unique dude in the football space right now, and I think that the NFL fans are really gonna like him.
We are used to having guys like that in Chicago. Some guys that are a little different, Jim McMahon.
McMahon was
very famously quarterback here. Was a little odd.
Jay Cutler was a wild man too.
Yeah, but nobody liked him. So I mean, like he is a complete dick. Like even here, people were like, "Fuck that guy," Cutler didn't endear himself to anyone during his time in Chicago. So
Yeah.
I just want to pay attention to football again. I haven't paid attention to football in like a decade, man. It
Yeah.
would be nice to just pay attention a little bit and
Yeah.
not be miserable. Baseball has killed me this year, man.
White Sox got 91 losses.
They're so bad. They're so bad. Dude, I took the kid to the game a couple weeks ago. He's been to baseball before, but now he's older and kind of understand what's going on. And he's like, yeah, they're really bad. I'm like, dude, you have no freaking clue. Like, they're abysmal. Like, it's unreal how bad they are.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a team that bad before. The Houston Astros of the mid 2000s were pretty bad, but
Mike, this is a historically bad baseball team. Like, you got to go back to like the dead ball era to find a team that's bad baseball.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, I know you guys came here to listen to our movie NFL baseball talk. But
15 minutes.
As you guys can tell, the name of the podcast is the Bret Hart versus Owen Hart 1994, the greatest sibling rivalry in pro wrestling history. I think that is pretty clear, right? Like, I don't think there's even a close one.
I can't think of, Phoenix and Pentagon from Lucha Underground, maybe, but actually more Puma. No, you're right. Prince Puma was with Phoenix with Pentagon more than
Pentagon and Phoenix. Oh, Pentagon's reporting to Orlando this week, apparently.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we were going to get into that, but we talked about them last week, so we don't need to talk about them again. But so they've had a lot of matches, but I don't think they've ever really had a feud.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, but they've wrestled each other a lot. And then I was trying to think like Matt and Jeff Hardy, they did a feud, but it wasn't very good.
Not as good
and
as this
the Usos was abysmal. Like their match, I know you didn't watch it, but it legit is one of the most universally hated matches in WWE history. And like these people love everything, but they hated it.
Listening to Joe and Rich talk about that feud entertained me greatly. So no, I never saw that one. I think, is it a controversial opinion to say the Usos are not a very good individual act? Like when they're on their own, they're not great.
You know what? The Yeet guy, I can't remember which one he is.
Who cares?
I would say he's not like a great main event singles attraction. That doesn't mean he doesn't have good matches occasionally. He does. It depends on the opponent. But I would say he's a pretty over act. The other one is not over at all. But I think the whole is better than the sum of the parts, right? One of those deals. I think they're much better as a team, and I think they're about to become a team again.
Which is ironic because I think the opposite of the Lucha Brothers. I actually think that they are kind of, maybe I don't know better, but I personally like them on their own. Like maybe it's just my Lucha Underground memories coming back, but I love Pentagon Jr. and Lucha Underground.
Yeah, me too. We actually got a comment on one of our shorts last week about like I've never heard of anybody that likes Pentagon more than Phoenix. It's like it's not that I like them better. I like them differently, if that makes sense. I feel like they're different attractions, to be honest with you. Because Pentagon's all charisma. He does some of the moves, but he's all charisma. It's all about getting the crowd into it. And Phoenix, it's all about the moves and selling, right? He's an underdog. Well, so I just think that they're just completely different acts.
Not everybody can be a work rate guy. Like I saw someone on Twitter this week, I forget who it was like, man, the Von Erichs aren't great. They just do wrist locks and drop kicks. I'm like, yeah, they're Von Erichs. Like, have you ever watched a Von Erich match? Like, well,
that guy is a fan of ours, and he, I think he might be on the younger. I think he might be on the younger side, but he's a huge AEW fan. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can. Here's the thing. I don't think everybody should be like a work rate guy because then you have no variety in wrestling. Like, if I go to the salad bar, like, pudding's cool, but if it's just pudding, like it's not a salad bar, it's a pudding bar. Like you need like variety. You need like different stuff on there. And not everybody can be Phoenix, right? Not everybody can be Mystico. Like I don't want 10 Will Ospreys. Like I like having like the Von Erichs are kind of all over the place and super sloppy, and that's kind of what makes them fun.
They're kind of like I don't know if the right word is grungy, but they're very much like a garage band type of act where not very polished. Have you ever heard of the band No Effects? They're a punk band from the 90s. He explained punk music perfectly. He said it's great music played by bad musicians.
That would be the Ramones.
Yeah, the Ramones said that too.
That would be them, though. You just described the Ramones.
Yeah. So, and the Ramones were basically punk rock versions of Beach Boys songs, right? Like
100%.
That's what they did. Mm-hmm. And so, like punk, they were kind of like, I wouldn't say the original, but they were like the first like big act in that scene. And then a lot of people kind of just copied them. Mm-hmm. And No Effects was like, yeah, look, None of us went to like Juilliard to learn how to play music. Like we're just like learn a couple chords and just hit them really hard and like learn how to do melodies. That's all we're doing. So like the Von Erichs, they learned how to punch, drop kick, come off the top rope, and do a couple and do the claw. And that's all that they do. And then the rest is just punching and kicking. That's like the whole match. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like the Von Erichs. And with Justin too, with them, like, could they get better? Sure. They've never really had a chance to get better because like they don't have to. They lived on Dad's island for years. So now that it's kind of the appeal of that's kind of what I dig about them is that they're different.
Yeah.
Like different is good.
Yeah. We're off topic. All right.
God damn, we did it again. We should call this show ADHD with Mike and JD.
It definitely is. That's what we had an original plan. Let's go ahead and get into that. So the original plan was we were going to watch Bret versus Owen from 1994. So save your memories of the match until we get to that point in the cage. SummerSlam in the cage. We were going to watch that match for this. But I was like, you know what? I think that this is such a good storyline and there's a lot of history there. And the audience, I think, really enjoys it when we talk history. So I was like, let's talk about the history before we watch the match. And then as JD and I were discussing, and I was like, I don't know that we can stay on topic long enough to where we would have enough time to be able to watch the match because the match is like a half hour long. And if we did that, like JD's going to fall asleep on the air because he's got to get up in the morning and go to school tomorrow.
You do that one time and you never hear the end of it.
So what I want to do is we're going to explore what many would consider the greatest sibling rivalry in the history of wrestling, Bret Hart versus his younger brother Owen Hart. This is a story of family competition and betrayal that captured the hearts and minds of wrestling fans worldwide. Let's go ahead and get into it, man. Can we tell
the other reason why we didn't want to watch the match?
Let's go ahead and get into that.
We should be honest with the fans.
Yeah.
This is a super controversial Mike and JD statement where I think some of our older fans are going to kind of curse us, but the truth of the matter is neither one of us really like the cage match.
No. I personally I think I saw some people on Twitter a few weeks ago. And that's where I got the idea of like, hey, let's just watch that match for a podcast. And then I was like, we were talking about it and I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't remember that match being very good. I remember them just trying to escape the cage the whole time. Like this is a blood feud and all they're trying to do is get away from each other.
That's what I was there. Like that was United Center's first event ever. Was SummerSlam 94. I was a freshman in high school. I went with my dad and my brother. And I was super excited for that match. And I remember being really bored, but I was also like in 94, I was renting videos from Blockbuster and I had copied and I would watch the I Quit match, like the I Quit match over and over again. Tully Blanchard, Magnum TA. So that in my mind is what a cage match should be. And like Bret and Owen hated each other and they just couldn't wait to get in there and run away. Like the psychology of a WWE cage match, I just can never wrap my head around it.
Yeah, but this one was I feel like the psychology in this one was just more egregious.
Yeah, I agree.
Than any of because I think what they were trying to do is I feel like they were trying to turn it into a ladder match because they kept going to the top. There were other times where they were trying to escape out the cage and like they would keep pulling each other in. That doesn't mean there weren't parts that were exciting. I just was like, it was that over and over again, them either trying to climb up to over the top or trying to escape out the door. And it just, I got bored to tears by the match. And then it was really long too, on top of it.
I'll be honest with you. I don't like any WWE cage match before like 97. Like, I don't like the psychology of them. They don't do it.
Can you explain why they changed, like escape the cage rules became a thing?
Oh yeah,
in the WWF.
So the Dave always talks about the first escape the cage match was Bruno. I believe it was Bruno and the Sheik.
Yes.
So
the original Sheik.
The original Sheik.
Ed
Farhat. Yeah, the legendary Blood and Fire. Great book. You should pick it up. Sheik didn't do no jobs, right? The Sheik wasn't coming in to put someone over, but Sheik loved working for Vince Sr. Vince Sr. paid really well, and it was good to help with his territory. It was good to help Sheik grow the name, right? So Sheik liked to travel outside of Detroit on occasion. Detroit, home of John Hughes. So Sheik had a feud with Bruno over the title, but Sheik wasn't losing, wasn't getting pinned by Bruno. Bruno wasn't losing the title to the Sheik. So what are we gonna do? So the idea of it was that if you not escaped the cage, but if you left the cage, you would win. And in the Bruno cage match, the psychology was Bruno was going to get his hands on the guy and beat the shit out of them until they could no longer move. And then he looked down like, fuck you. And he would walk out of the cage because he was a badass. That was the psychology of the Bruno cage match. At some point.
And he would beat the guy's ass in like 7 minutes. So there was no 40-minute cage match. He's going in there and he's beating up fucking Ivan Koloff in 7 minutes and he's walking out.
Bruno didn't get paid by the hour. Let's just leave it at that. Bruno was not known for his long work matches. Bruno's great, don't get me wrong, but he had a lot of his matches were typically on the shorter side. So that's just what the Bruno cage match was. But at some point, the idea of the cage match became run away from each other and escape. I know Kofi Kingston does cool stuff, but if I'm in a cage, I want to see two guys use the cage to beat the shit out of each other. I don't want to watch guys run away. This is why I don't like WWE wrestling.
Right. Well, because the point of the cage match is so that way the cowardly heel can't run away. And so that way the cowardly heel can also have his friends join in. Now, the friends typically join in towards the end, and then it becomes a thing, right? But that's the point of the cage match. I think the only ones I'm trying to think of, pre-97, obviously Hogan and Orndorff and Toronto.
Hogan and Orndorff's blow off was who jumped first.
I know, but I still enjoyed
that ending.
It's stupid, but I still enjoyed it. And then Hogan and Boss Man, I thought was great because he did that.
I like Hogan and Boss. I can go with that one. That one's actually kind of fun because they're both kind of big in that one. That one's kind of all right. But I mean, the rest of them, it just doesn't do it for me. Most of the cage matches.
Yeah, they don't. And that one didn't either. But let's set the stage of the feud. So actually, let's just talk about Bret and Owen. I have some notes here. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read from some of my notes. JD, feel free to interrupt. Stu Hart, a legendary wrestler and trainer. He ran the famous Hart Dungeon in Calgary. I'm sure you guys all know about that. Him and Helen had 12 kids, many of whom would go on to make their mark in the wrestling business. Among them, Bret and Owen stood out the most. Bret was the eighth born child, known as the excellence of execution. And he came into the WWF in the early 80s whenever Vince McMahon kind of bought out Stampede. And then he was a tag team guy for a long time, became Intercontinental Champion, and then in 1992 won the World Championship. And then in 1993, he was an established top guy in the WWF. Owen Hart, youngest, he was number 12 of 12, also trained in the Hart Dungeon, started his career in Stampede. Then his journey in the WWF began in 88 under the masked persona of the Blue Blazer, and later he formed tag teams such as the New Foundation and High Energy. But it wasn't until 1993 that Owen began to step out of Bret's shadow, setting the stage for one of the most personal feuds in history. What do you remember about the early days of Owen?
So I liked the Blue Blazer, comic book fan, lucha, guy who get into lucha. So I always thought, and again, he was different. Like Owen Hart did different stuff than everybody else, but nobody took him seriously. And then High Energy, I don't know, I like Coco and Owen, but she didn't take him seriously. Right. Yeah. He was Bret's brother, and no one ever took him seriously until the Jerry Lawler feud. Right. Yeah. The Bret Hart, Jerry Lawler feud, which was kind of stupid on its basis. Who's the real king? But fortunately, you had Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler, two of the best ever, who really made that a super hot personal feud in 1993, which Jerry Lawler fucked up by,
hold on. I got a note here. This is going to make you laugh.
Oh,
I actually pulled some notes from an article on the Last Word on Sports. So a guy did a really good job of detailing the feud, but he doesn't really know some of the inside of pro wrestling. I think he just was like a viewer watching the show, right? So he didn't really have any of the inside. So
not a total nerd. Okay.
Yeah. So the seeds of this rivalry were planted at Survivor Series 1993.
They were.
Bret Hart, already an established star, was embroiled in a feud with Jerry the King Lawler. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, Lawler couldn't compete. Shawn Michaels took his place. JD, what were those unforeseen circumstances that this kid doesn't know about?
Jerry Lawler was accused of raping a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Which Which
he ended up I think he had the case thrown out for some nefarious reasons.
She said that it didn't happen. She recanted her statement, though he did admit to hanging out with them in a hotel room watching cartoons.
Ugh.
Make of that what you will. That is what he said, and said that she was allegedly a liar because she admitted to having sex, quote unquote, having sex with a black man. That is Jerry the King Lawler's words. The King, man, if you ever want to get grossed out, read about the history of Memphis at some point. It's disgusting. So this is why Jerry Lawler was not involved with the end of this feud with Bret Hart. They were reignited, but I mean, this was the hottest feud in the company, 93, because the Luger Yokozuna thing was dying. It was not working. Lex just didn't fit in that role. And I know Bruce Pritchard will try to convince you that Yokozuna was this great champion, but the guy had no personality. Who was cutting his promo? They had to bring in Jim Cornette to cut his promos. Like, it just And
they didn't want him to speak English, but the guy spoke perfect English because he was a Samoan guy they were trying to make Japanese.
From California.
And they said he's from Polynesia, which
technically he's right. Like that's where Samoa is,
Yeah, but they were able to convince everybody. Yeah, he's from Polynesia, which is part of Japan somehow. So it's just like, and nobody thought their audience was dumber than Vince McMahon, and honestly, he was mostly right.
I mean, I was gonna say, has anything changed? So Jerry and Bret, like Kit Lawler and Bret, have a really good feud. Like they're super intense stuff. Lawler has this beatdown of Bret at King of the Ring 93 that's just epic. Like he beats the shit out of Bret. It's awesome. And they have a good match. I think Survivor or SummerSlam 93, they have a really good match. And then it becomes like, it's a great idea. Lawler was going to have his King's Court, and it was going to be 3 masked guys, and Bret and his brothers. It was Bret, Bruce, Keith, and Owen, I believe.
I got the notes right here. All right.
So right?
Shawn Michaels took Jerry's place. They had a traditional elimination match. Bret teamed with his brothers Owen, Bruce, and Keith to face Michaels and his masked knights.
Okay, hold on. Don't read it yet. It was
okay. I don't think I have the notes on the masked knights.
Oh, okay. I know who
in the story he did put it, but I don't think I copied that part.
So the idea was these knights were going to be guys that you recognized, and Bret and Owen were going to beat him, and then you were going to rip the mask off. And one of them was supposed to be Terry Funk.
I remember that.
Right. Yeah. And Terry Funk found out about it, went to the show. Terry Funk found it out. And very famously, he wrote Vince a letter the night before saying he couldn't go to the show because his horse was sick. Yeah. Like fantastic, most Terry Funk thing ever. So instead of that, they wound up just masking him and keeping the mask on. Well, one of them is very clearly Greg Valentine.
Yeah.
Like it's like you cannot miss it. The other one's Jeff Gaylord. Interesting name. Interesting look. Jeff Gaylord looked like a guy who should have been a pro wrestler. US
dude, right?
Big Jack dude sucked. Was not good at wrestling.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I cannot remember who the other guy.
Yeah. I don't have it in my notes. I'm sure somebody's going to correct us. It's probably going to be.
I think it's Horowitz, but someone can correct me on that because I'm drawing a blank on who the third night was. But I mean, they never unmasked him.
Who was the original Bret Hart in wrestling?
Barry Horowitz.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew that or not. I was gonna try to do a pop quiz on old JD, but JD's smarter than that.
I'm a nerd. I know my stuff.
Yeah. So, because Scott D'Amore brought back Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, right? And he said that he has footage of Barry Horowitz in Maple Leaf Pro or Maple Leaf Wrestling under the name Bret Hart, and he also has Bret Hart wrestling. He has footage of Bret Hart wrestling there under the name Buddy Hart because he couldn't use his own name because the great Barry Horowitz already had that name, so Bret had to get a different name, which is fucking hilarious.
Wrestling, baby. I love how Mike finds a way to work a TNA thing. Always.
Like, it's not TNA. He's not even TNA.
It's 100% a TNA thing. It's Scott D'Amore starting a offshoot. That's a TNA story.
That's
So this happens, right? And the first conflict between Bret and Owen starts during the match. I believe Owen is the only person eliminated from the Hart family. Am I correct on that?
You are correct. So after Survivor Series, Owen voiced his grievances and hold on. Did I miss something? Okay. Owen was the standout performer among the Hart brothers, eliminating 2 of the nights before a critical moment occurred. Owen inadvertently collided with Bret, causing Bret to fall off the apron. Distracted and frustrated, Owen was rolled up by Michaels and eliminated, becoming the only Hart brother ousted from the match. The Hart family won the match, but Owen's frustration was palpable. This was no ordinary sibling squabble. It was the beginning of a rift that would soon erupt.
So it's really cool. After like there's this big rift, like the great term for it with Bret and Owen, and then over the holidays, over Christmas, they reconcile. Remember, there's a promo where Bret and Owen say they're together and they're gonna work. They're not only they buried the hatchet, they are gonna become a tag team. They're gonna go after the tag team titles, and they have a match with the Steiners that I always thought was really good. I just heard Bix and Chris kind of buried a little bit on one of their Patreon shows. I always thought it was a pretty good match. Yeah.
Because I thought it was pretty good, but I have not watched that in a long time. I do
Me
know
neither.
Like I do know that it's available, but obviously some of the stuff that you watch when you're 12 is like fucking great your whole life. But I don't know. I just feel like those two teams had a really good match.
I do too. And I feel like they had a match that was not quite right for a 94 WWF audience. But I mean, like, you're telling me Bret Hart, Owen Hart, and Rick and Scott Steiner didn't have a good match yet? I have to watch it again, but I have a hard time believing it.
Did Zellner like it and Bix didn't like it? Because if Bix didn't like it, I'm questioning that one.
I don't remember. I think they both didn't said it was overrated. I have to go back and look at it because I remember it being like a Japanese style match in WWF 94, which is weird.
The thing is, when you watch a match from 1994, you have to watch it like you have to put on your 1994 lens. You know what I mean?
They're good at that. I think those guys get that more than most people. Like I think a lot of people struggle with that. But I feel like part of the problem was like I think Zellner was saying like the fans don't know how to react because they aren't used to babyface versus babyface matches.
I could see that.
It's worked Japanese style. Right, a lot of moves, not a lot of heat spots. Like it's not a WWF match, which is what's kind of cool about it. I was cool about it because it didn't feel like everything else I was watching at the time. So, anyways, the Hart brothers beat the Steiner brothers and secured themselves a shot against the Quebecers.
Yeah,
at
speaking
Royal
of TNA,
Rumble.
Speaking of PCO,
TNA, yeah, PCO.
All right, so after Survivor Series, Owen voiced his grievances in a sit-down interview with Vince. He felt overshadowed by Bret, challenged his brother to a one-on-one match. Bret, however, sought to mend the growing rift, and instead of fighting Owen, he proposed a way to team up, as JD just explained. And then eventually they get a shot at the Quebecers at Royal Rumble 94. At the Royal Rumble, the Hart brothers seemed united against the Quebecers, but things took a turn for the worse. During the match, Bret injured his knee but refused to tag out to Owen, instead continuing as the legal man. The decision proved costly as Bret's knee prevented him from applying the sharpshooter, leading to the referee stopping the match and awarding the victory to the Quebecers. Owen's frustration boiled over, and in a shocking moment, he attacked Bret's injured leg, leaving him writhing in pain. This betrayal was a clear sign that Owen had grown tired of living in his brother's shadow. Later that night, Bret would go on to become the co-winner of the Royal Rumble alongside Lex Luger, further fueling Owen's resentment. So Bret didn't really that need turned out to be okay because he won the Royal Rumble.
Oh, hold on.
He was selling it the whole time though.
Well, of course. So Owen kicks literally. Well, he says, "I kicked your knee out of your knee," and what I mean by that is like Owen leaves, Bret gets like hauled back, and like they used to have WWF before they had the big jumbotrons. They used to have this little video wall, and when I say video wall, they had like multiple screens stacked on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something you see a lot today in wrestling, but at '94 was different because you got to see. I believe it's Todd Pettengill interviewing Owen backstage, and Owen is talking about he cuts a terrible promo because Owen won a great promo. But I mean, like, he's so angry, and he comes off like a guy who's just frothing at the mouth. He's so angry. And you see Owen whipping Bret on these video screens while Bret is struggling to get backstage. And he's, I kicked your knee out of your knee. You're selfish. Blah, blah, blah. And then during the Rumble, because back then they didn't play the music, right? Which always led to some, like, it would get quiet when they go 3, 2, 1, and people would be quiet because they would wait
I remember in 94 specifically. I think Tenryu came out and nobody knew what to make of him.
Tenryu and Kabuki just showed up. They were going to beat up Luger. Like they didn't do anything to. God forbid we want to put people over when they show up on our shows.
Yeah,
like Vince did nothing for. They didn't know who Kabuki was. Like they didn't know Tenryu was on the year before too. But they didn't really like make it a big deal. It's so weird. So weird. But yeah, so 3, 2, 1. There's silence. Nobody comes out, and Vince and Lawler are like, "Oh, that must have been Bret Hart's spot." Oh, and the next one, 3, 2, 1, and then Bret does come out, limp into the ring, and people go ape shit.
They do,
for Bret. It was Bastion Booger. Bastion Booger got lost to the ring, which nobody needed to see Mike Shaw and the Bastion Booger gimmick in the Royal Rumble, so it was fine. And then Luger and Bret take this amazing tumble out of the ring which Luger gives Bret all the credit for.
Yeah.
Like, and they hit at the same time. Like, it's like they don't have to doctor the video. Those two actually do hit at the same time. Makes for a good
perfect.
moment.
Yeah. They nailed it. So they're at a full-on rivalry at this point, and they agree to face each other at WrestleMania 10 on March 20th, 1994, in the opening match of the event, which was weird because Bret also had a title shot, so did Luger. So Luger would get Yokozuna. Sorry, go ahead.
They flipped the coin. They did a big thing where Jack Tunney came to the ring because, like, nowadays they'd make it a 3-way. But in 94, what they did was they figured, well, both Luger and Bret get the shot. So they're going to flip a coin. If Luger wins, he gets the first shot. And then Bret gets, I think that's how it was. So
Bret gets the winner.
Bret would get the winner, right? Yeah. But if Bret had won the coin flip, then Luger would face Crush.
Yeah.
And then Luger would face the winner. So what happened was Luger wins, Bret faces Owen, and then Luger faces Yoko in the first round. And then, they had Bret and Owen, they had this awesome opening match. One of the best technical matches in WWE at that point. And because Bret had won the King of the Ring in 93 over Bam Bam with the victory roll. Like, sits up on Bam Bam.
Another amazing match, by the way. I don't think people talk enough about that match.
Bret has 3 really good matches. He has the match with, I think it's Luger. No, Hennig. He has Hennig in the first round, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon in the second, and then the third he has Bam Bam. And they're great matches. Yeah. Bret is on freaking fire in 1993, and he beats Bigelow with the victory roll to win the King of the Ring. Well, they set it up with Owen too. He's on Owen. He's on Owen. He's going to hit the victory roll. He pops down. Owen pops his head up, catches Bret 1, 2, 3, beats him with a wrestling move. Right. Yeah. It's awesome. And then, Bret's down. And then, of course, Yokozuna wins. And then they go to the finals. It's going to be Bret and Yoko in the finals. Roddy Piper's a special guest referee. And they the whole thing is a make good of the clusterfuck from the year before with Hogan.
Yeah, WrestleMania 9 is an all-time bad wrestling event. Like,
terrible. Absolutely terrible.
It's one, and I used to have the tape. And because I missed a lot of 93 and 94 just because we were moving around a lot and I was more focused on like playing baseball and doing other stuff like that. So, and I don't think we had cable either. So it was like just difficult for me to watch at the time. And then at some point, like towards the end of 94, I'm like back in. And so I then have to go to my aunt's video store and rent all the videos of the pay-per-views that I had missed from like the previous 2 years. So I ended up having a dubbed copy of 1993, the WrestleMania 9. I had a dubbed copy because my dad bought it at the flea market. He brought home a bunch of different tapes. I had like the best of world class, and I had some like WCW stuff, and I had randomly just WrestleMania 9 from 1993. And I remember wearing that thing out. Like, but in hindsight, it's like that show sucked.
I watched it live. That was my first pay-per-view I ever got, was WrestleMania 9.
What a horrendous way to start.
Oh my God, was I deflated at the end of the night. As being a Bret Hart fan, I was like, Hogan's the champ? What? But anyways, they do a make good. Bret beats Yokozuna, does the Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap, puts right what once went wrong. And then Savage's ideas. He brings all the baby faces out there and they hoist Bret up on their shoulders. So Randy had this idea to anoint Bret. Like, really, like Randy said, we got to make good and make sure everyone knows Bret is the guy because Savage is a genius. So they do it. They make Bret the guy. And then what makes it even better is that Owen comes out at the and looks out into his brother with the title. And then he's like, I fucking beat him tonight.
Yeah.
I fucking beat him. And he's still one-ups me. It's like he's one of the most relatable. He's like one of the most relatable villains in pro wrestling history.
He's got a gripe. He really does. Especially like you can relate to him if you are the younger sibling. It's like because nothing you can do can surpass what your bigger brother is doing.
Even if you have any, I was the older sibling, and my brother always said he related to Owen and that. But I felt like I could relate to Owen too because everybody feels like they've been overlooked at some point in their life. Mm-hmm. And Owen was ridiculously talented. He was a better natural athlete than Bret was.
Oh yeah.
Before all the knee injuries really slowed Owen down, he was incredible. Like some of those, go back and watch some of the junior heavyweight stuff he did with Liger and New Japan. It's unreal. Owen was so good. So 94, they watch on 94. Owen is like, I'm going to win the King of the Ring. I'm going to do what Bret did. I'm going to win the King of the Ring. So Owen Hart in 94 wins the King of the Ring with the help of Mike.
Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
That would be correct. Jim the Anvil Neidhart makes his return after 2 years, and they're the new foundation essentially is back together, though they're smart enough not to call him that, nor are they putting him back in the parachute pants. And Owen is basically he's the king of hearts. Great gimmick for him. He's so freaking annoying.
The king of hearts. He's also the Black Heart.
He's he was the Black Heart later, actually.
Yeah, that's right. That's when
Bret left.
That's when Bret left. Yeah, he became the Black Heart.
He's the Black Heart. I always liked that one. They didn't do much with it, but I always thought Black Heart was a cool name.
But
so yeah, then Bret and Owen sets the stage. Owen's challenging Bret at SummerSlam in the second half of the double main event to challenge Bret for the WWF World Title inside of a steel cage. Do you remember what the other half of that main event was, Mike?
It was one of the worst matches in pay-per-view history. The Undertaker versus Yokozuna in a casket match.
That would be incorrect, sir. That was at Royal Rumble. But you're right. It was one of the worst matches in history. It would be the Undertaker versus the Undertaker.
Oh, that's right. How did I fuck that up? That's so funny. And Chuck Norris was there too, right? Or am I getting
No, that was Yokozuna. That was Chuck Norris was at the rematch of Undertaker at Survivor.
That was 93.
No, 94. You're right. No, you're right. They had the rematch at Survivor Series 94.
Okay, so that was later in the year.
Yeah, later in the year, Chuck.
Guys, it's 30 years ago. My memory is.
We're old and we haven't really studied up on this. We're just talking. We're just riffing this. So yeah, no, this was Undertaker versus this is Mark Calloway Undertaker versus Brian Lee Undertaker versus JD questioning every life decision he's ever made and watching a laser light show going, this is why my friends make fun of me.
But this was still like the one where they killed the Undertaker and he got raised up into the heavens, right?
That's a Rumble. That happens
in
Rumble
one. Okay.
This is his let's do this real quick. Okay. At the Rumble,
let's relive your childhood trauma. Go ahead.
Let's fucking do it. At the Rumble, they do the casket match. They put Undertaker in the casket. All the heels have to dogpile on the casket and they pull it out, and then I think it's Marty Jannetty in the suit is getting levitated through the video board that I talked about earlier into heaven. The dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen in pro wrestling. And I say this a lot, but it's awful. It's so stupid. This is the moment pro wrestling turned and they just went all supernatural. And I have to listen to all these nerds telling me how awesome WWF is. And I'm like, you have no fucking clue. So, and then Ted DiBiase, the terrible manager, says he had signed the Undertaker, and the Undertaker starts wrestling for him, but it's very clearly not the Undertaker. And if you watch Smoky Mountain, you go, that's very clearly Brian Lee. So then they challenge to go Undertaker versus Undertaker at SummerSlam. Leslie Nielsen was the celebrity involved trying to solve the mystery of the Undertaker. And I paid money to see this show live.
Yeah.
For reasons.
All right, let me get to the notes on the match. So August 29, 1994, the two brothers met inside the steel cage with the WWF Championship on the line. The match was brutal. With both men using the cage, no, they were just trying to escape the cage the whole time. The match reaches climax when both brothers tried to escape over the top of the cage simultaneously. Bret managed to incapacitate Owen by causing him to get caught in the cage, allowing Bret to drop to the floor and retain his championship. The post-match assault by Owen and his ally Jim Neidhart on Bret only further highlighted their feud. And then afterwards, so Bret retains the championship until Survivor Series 1994. He lost the title to one Bob Backlund in a submission match because Owen Hart manipulated his mom, Helen, to throw in the towel while Bret was caught in the crossface chicken wing. And their feud, they continued to have a feud. Their feud continued through 1995, but it cooled down as they moved on to other storylines. And then they actually ended up reuniting as part of the new Hart Foundation in 1997, which was one of the cooler moments of that year whenever they came together and the Bulldog came together. So, but yeah, man, what a pretty awesome feud. I thought that this was the only time that like a brother versus brother rivalry was ever like really good.
I think that the article kind of buries because that when Anvil and Owen are beating on Bret, Davey Boy comes back.
Yes.
Because
Davey Boy bigger than ever before.
He had been fired for taking human growth hormone and had been rehired after taking more human growth hormone. Davey Boy is so large, it looks like if he flexes, his flesh is going to tear. Like he's so jacked at this point. But yeah, Davey Boy comes back. And then I love the storytelling in this submission match because Backlund very famously had lost the title in '83 to the Sheik when he was in the Sheik's camel clutch.
Yeah.
Arnold Skolin, his manager, threw the towel in because one more time, like just like we talked about with Bruno and Sheik, guys don't want to do real jobs, so they have to find ways around it. So instead of Backlund submitting or getting pinned, it's no, the pain was too unbearable, so Arnold Skolin had to throw in the towel. And so 11 years later, actually, they built this entire match around that wonky ass finish, right? Where I believe, I think it's Davey has the towel for Owen.
Davey has a towel. Owen attacks Davey, and then Owen, because Owen was in Backlund's corner, right? So, he had Backlund's towel. Davey had Bret's towel, and then Owen attacks Davey, slams him into the ring post, and then he starts crying because he's worried that his brother is getting hurt because he's in the crossface chicken wing and he can't get out. Backlund's snapped. He's got it locked in. He can't get out, and he goes and gets his mom. And his mom comes to ringside. He hands her the towel and she throws the towel in pathetically. It could barely go over the middle rope. I remember that one.
No, Helen wasn't an athlete.
She's like 113 years old at this point too, I think. So it's just like hanging there, and then all of a sudden he wins. And I think they did another great callback because the Sheik, he won the title because of an errant towel throw in, and then he immediately loses it like a month or two later to Hulk Hogan, to the next generation superstar of Hulk Hogan. Backlund, I think like a week or two later, loses it in like 5 seconds to Diesel in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, almost like, and this totally on purpose. This is when they were trying to make Kevin Nash the new Hogan. It's very clear that that didn't work with Luger, so they're going to try to make Nash Hogan. And at first, it's kind of cool, and then they managed to take everything cool about Kevin Nash and take it away, and that didn't work either. But I mean, yeah, it's actually a really, really well booked match that relies on history, which is something that WWF didn't like to do then and really doesn't even like to do now all that much. Like, they much rather play in the moment. They don't like tapping back into their history. So for 1994 to dig back into something that was at that point 11 years old was just unheard of for them. And it's actually, man, this is the peak kind of the Bret Owen story, because it kind of fizzles after this.
Yeah.
Right? Because like in 90
it does. I don't think they even really. I'm trying to remember if they even had like another marquee match.
Did they wrestle?
I don't think they did.
Who did Bret wrestle at WrestleMania 11? Is it Owen?
It was Backlund.
Is it Backlund that Bret?
He wrestles. He wrestles him again. Yeah.
Okay,
they do another. I want to say, because I think it was like an I Quit match and Piper was the referee. And
that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
because the main event was LT and Bam Bam on that one. And then Kevin Nash wrestled Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. And like, it was, I don't know, man. It just doesn't, that's not a very good WrestleMania either. But like, that's kind of like the feud has this ultimate moment, but it never truly has a blow off. And this is a year in. So Bret and Owen got a full year out of this feud, which was really impressive back then. That just didn't happen in WWF in that era.
Yeah. It's really hard for people to get into like the sibling rivalry stuff. You really have to be two very good wrestlers that can play very good characters, right, to get people into it. And Matt and Jeff Hardy just weren't good enough characters. They were really good together, but like individually, they didn't really become really good characters until they just couldn't wrestle anymore. And then Matt Hardy like had to become a new character, right? And then he started to really learn how to tell stories and do stuff like that. But whenever him and Jeff were going at it in the WWE, I think they tried it again in TNA and it just didn't really work out there either.
That's when the Brother Nero stuff started.
Yeah. And then eventually they got back together, and that's where the real money was at. Like there was no money in them wrestling each other. So I think even Rick and Scott did a feud in WCW and that just didn't work out.
No.
So
that's right around the time Scott turned heel, and it just I don't know. For the most part, nobody really wants to see these brother teams wrestle because there's always usually one brother that's less than, and Owen was the less than brother, but Bret did so much to elevate him.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he lost to him clean hours before he won the world title. Right. Like that's called instead of levitation, that's elevation, Holmes.
Yeah.
Bret did it.
It was a good, man. That's like of a shitty era in WWF television, because it really is. Yeah. That feud really stands out as something special. It really does.
It really does. It really does. On the next time we're going to be here on Overtime, JD and I will go back. We'll turn the clock back again to 1994. But there was another big feud that year that started out drawing some money, but by the end of the year could no longer draw any money. It was Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. We're going to talk about the 3-match series between them. and talk about Hulk Hogan signing with WCW, which is a pretty historic thing.
Hulk Hogan hijacking WCW.
Leading to Hacksaw Jim Duggan defeating Steve Austin for the United States title.
Changed history.
Yeah. So all of the after effects of Hogan signing with WCW in 1994 really is one of the most important things that ever happened. It just like the octopus, like all the tentacles go in so many different places. It's quite fascinating.
So we have this concept in
let's not get too much. I see where you're going. Okay. Let's not get too much into it because we have another podcast to do that I want people to listen to.
No. I know that. That's what this, like, we have this concept in Buddhism. It's this idea of the pebble going into the water, right? Yeah. The pebble goes into the water and it creates these ripples, and these ripples can stretch out and cause waves further down the line. But these titanic waves that can crash against the ocean have zero effect on the pebble that started it, right? The pebble is still the pebble, but it's the actions. So it's like those circles of Buddha, as we call them. Like, that's exactly what that was. And you threw me off because I had a very poetic way I was going to tie this in, but you derailed me and made me forget it. But I was going to make my analogy, and now I've gone off the reservation. So
I just didn't want you to get into the history of Hogan and WCW.
No. I was going to talk about.
I was like, wait a minute. We want to do another podcast.
Yeah, Steve Austin, and that's like, that's like that. No, I'm not going to touch that.
Okay. All right, guys. Hey, thanks everybody for being Patreon subscribers. I greatly appreciate it. Please tell your friends to subscribe too. We could always use more business. But that's going to do it for us this week on Overtime. And until next time, mahalo.
I want to see something really scary.